boys and girls. It's great to be back to doing another assembly with you.
And today we've got another story for you. And it's about a boy called David.
He wasn't much older than you.
And we're going to find out how even though he was small, how he was very, very strong.
So let's have a listen. A long, long time ago, there was a boy named David.
And David wasn't very strong. In fact, he was actually quite weak.
And David was young and short and not very strong at all.
But there was one thing we should remember about David, that he loved God.
And a long, long time ago, there was a man named Goliath.
And Goliath was very strong, and in fact, he was the strongest man in all the land. He was even stronger than your dad.
And unlike David, Goliath was very, very tall and very, very strong and very, very scary.
And one day, Goliath and his army decided to fight God's people.
And David didn't like that one bit. "You can't fight against God," he said.
But Goliath and his army of men started to make fun of God and his people because no one would fight against Goliath.
"Who can fight against me?" came the thundering voice of Goliath.
God's army looked around to see if there was anyone brave enough or strong enough to take on Goliath.
"I don't want to fight him, do you?" said one. "There's no way I'm going to fight Goliath." "What about you?" said another.
"God can't be very strong if this is all he's got for an army. Look at you all. There's no one who can fight me. Ha ha ha."
And all Goliath's army laughed, while all of God's army was shaking in fear.
Then, while the bad guys were laughing,
Ha ha ha.
And while all the good guys were shaking with fear,
a loud but squeaky voice came from inside one of the tents of God's people.
"I'll fight him." And out came little David, ready to fight the big Goliath.
"You can't fight Goliath, David. You're not even a part of the army. You just clean our armour," said some of the men.
"I will fight him, and I'll win. Goliath may look strong, but my God is stronger."
"Remember when I look after the sheep," he said. "If a bear comes to attack my sheep, I'll fight against it."
And after a lot of talking, God's people finally decided David could fight Goliath. "You'll need a big sword," they said.
"I don't need anything," he said. "God is enough for me."
So off he went, about to fight Goliath with no sword and no armour, just a little sling in his pocket.
"What?"
shouted Goliath.
"Is this all you've got for me? Run along, little boy. This isn't a fair fight."
But David walked over to the river and picked up some pebbles and put them in his pocket.
"My God is stronger than you, Goliath," he said.
And he put one of the pebbles in his sling and started to swing it.
The sling went round and round and round and round and round until swoosh!
And the pebble went hurtling towards Goliath's head and hit him right between the eyes.
Then, with a large bang, Goliath fell to the ground.
Everyone looked shocked. Did David really just win against Goliath?
When Goliath's army saw that Goliath had lost against David, they turned around and ran as fast as they could.
And God's people picked up David and cheered.
"Hooray! Hooray!" they shouted.
You see, boys and girls, although Goliath was very strong, David knew that God was stronger.
And David didn't fight Goliath with a big sword or a shield. He threw a pebble at him.
And God is so strong that that pebble was enough to take down the mighty Goliath.
When all of God's people were afraid to fight Goliath because he was so strong, David knew that God was going to win the fight because God is so much stronger.
So next time you're afraid, remember the story of David and remember that God is stronger.